Today marks 1 year since my father passed away, and so I figured I would just talk a bit about him. Growing up, he loved telling us kids stories of his childhood, so maybe that's why I like telling you guys stories from my childhood. And he had lots of stories. He mentioned how, I believe he had rubella. He had something. He wasn't allowed to leave bed for a week, and he just was dedicated to not leaving bed. And so Nanny, my grandma, brought in this huge TV, which is it's like the size of a dresser, into the bedroom so that he can watch black and white shows. I mentioned how my aunt did get hit by a car when he threw a ball at the window. This is in Brooklyn because she went to go get it. And she's fine. She's still alive. And how movies cost like a dime or something like that. Lots of fun stories. But my favorite, he grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and when he was in high school, his father, so my grandfather, was a merchant marine, and he had two ports of call, which is New York and DC. And because of that, he had trouble that, since he lived in New York, whenever the ship came back there, it was all easy peasy, but when he went down to DC, he'd have to take a long train home and back to DC. It was a pain. So he wanted to settle into a town midway between the two that just would be easy to get to from both ports, which is why he settled in a Heights town. And that's where my grandparents and my father moved to. Well, the story my father likes telling is they built their own house. Literally. At that time, this is in the 40s, I believe, you could order a house through a catalog. I know, that's crazy. But you would order the house through the catalog, and a train would drop off all the supplies, the wiring, the plumbing, everything in this kit, which explained the railroad tracks behind the house. Of course, they also went to the Coca-Cola bottling plant. You'd have to dig your own foundation, your own basement, whatever. And then you just built this thing. And yes, they built their own house. This is the family house, which until recently was still in the family. Anyway, my father likes mentioning, he mentions that, and I know he's done this at least once, he might have done it a few times, he'd take a bicycle from Brooklyn all the way down to Heightstown, and that's about 55 miles, which is doable. I've got friends who've bicycled a lot longer than that. I don't know if he did it every day, or if he did it just at least once and was proud of it. But he was part of the crew that built this house. So to ride all that way and work on the house, I consider quite impressive. So that's the story of how he ended up moving from Brooklyn to Heightstown. And he went to my high school. That's also where he met my mother, which surprisingly I don't have a story about, unlike a certain TV channel. Anyway, what have your parents told you that you look back at and go, is that really how things were? Or are you surprised with how things have changed within your lifetime? Because times have changed a lot. Thanks.